I sat with my hands flat on a laminate table, staring at the grainy photograph projected on the wall behind the company attorney. My brother's face, frozen mid-laugh, probably from last summer's barbecue. They'd pulled it from his Facebook page. "Mr. Reyes," the attorney said, adjusting his glasses, "do you understand the severity of these findings?" I nodded. My throat was sandpaper. The regional manager, a woman I'd never met before this week, slid a folder across the table. Inside were incident reports, witness statements, maintenance logs. My signature appeared on 3 separate documents. Schedules I'd supposedly altered, safety checks I'd allegedly skipped. The dates lined up perfectly with the accident, except I'd never seen those papers before in my life. "The investigation shows a pattern of negligence," she continued, her voice measured and cold. "Jorge Reyes died due to equipment failure that should have been prevented. The emergency shutoff you were responsible for inspecting hadn't been serviced in 14 months. That's not—" I stopped. My voice came out hoarse, unfamiliar. "I logged that inspection myself. Every month. It's in the system." The attorney exchanged a glance with the manager. That look, I'd seen it before, in the faces of the cops who interviewed me, the union rep who wouldn't meet my eyes, even my mother when she picked up the phone and hesitated before speaking. They'd already decided. Those logs were accessed and modified, the attorney said quietly, from your workstation, on your login credentials. The room tilted. Somewhere down the hall, I could hear normal office sounds. Keyboards clicking, someone laughing, the coffee machine gurgling. The world spinning on while mine stopped. "We're suspending you pending criminal review," the manager said, standing. "Security will escort you out. Don't return to company property. Don't contact any employees. The district attorney will be in touch." I walked out past the fabrication floor where Jorge and I had worked side by side for 6 years, past the break room where we'd split sandwiches, past Danny Kozlowski's office, my shift supervisor, the man who'd given the eulogy at Jorge's funeral, his hand on my shoulder, voice breaking as he called my brother a hero. His door was closed now, the blinds drawn. Outside, the parking lot stretched empty under a gray October sky. My truck sat alone in the employees section. Someone had keyed the word "killer" across the driver's side door. Crude letters scraped through blue paint down to bare metal. I got in and drove home through streets I'd known my entire life, past neighbors who were suddenly very interested in their lawns, past elementary school where Jorge and I used to shoot hoops after hours. My phone buzzed. A text from my dad. "Don't come to the house right now. Your mother needs time." I pulled over 2 blocks from home and sat there as the sun set, watching families through lit windows, living lives that had nothing to do with mine anymore. The last message Jorge sent me was still on my phone. 3 words, sent the morning he died. Something's not right. I hadn't understood then. I was beginning to now. 18 months earlier, Jorge had shown up at my apartment with 2 six-packs and a grin that meant trouble. "Guess who just got hired at Meridian Fabrication?" he said, pushing past me into the kitchen. I'd been working there for 3 years already, welding, assembly, whatever they needed. It was steady work in a town where steady meant everything. Our father had spent 30 years at the old textile mill before it closed. We watched him come home with that hollow look, month after month of unemployment. Jorge and I had promised ourselves we'd never end up like that. "You're serious?" I asked. "Start Monday. Same shift as you." He cracked open a beer, sliding one across the counter. The Reyes brothers back together, just like the old days. It wasn't quite like the old days. Jorge was 24, still living like he was 18. Late nights, late mornings, a string of girlfriends whose names I couldn't keep straight. But he was good with his hands, quick to learn, and when he focused, he could outwork anyone on the floor. Those first few months were good. We'd drive in together before dawn, thermoses of coffee between us, radio playing soft. The work was hard but honest, cutting steel, assembling industrial ventilation systems for hospitals and office buildings. Nothing glamorous, but we were building things that mattered. The problem started when Vincent Caruso took over as production supervisor. Caruso was 40-something, divorced, always chewing nicotine gum and checking his phone. He'd come up from the Virginia facility with a reputation for hitting quotas, for running tight ships, for getting results. Management loved him. The floor workers learned to stay out of his way. "This system's a joke," he announced the second week, standing in the middle of the fabrication bay. "We're running at 60% capacity. That changes now." He cut break times, eliminated the safety briefings we used to have every Monday, started scheduling overtime without asking, just posting names on the board and expecting us to show up. When Tommy Huang mentioned that the ventilation hoods needed maintenance, Caruso told him to fill out a form and get back to work. The form went nowhere. The hoods kept rattling. Jorge noticed it first. "Those extraction fans sound wrong," he said one afternoon, pointing up at the ceiling units that pulled welding fumes away from our stations. "Bearings are going." I listened. He was right. A grinding noise beneath the motor hum. "I'll file a report," I said. I did. Submitted it through the online system. Marked it urgent. Included photos and a sound recording. A week later, the status changed to under review. Then nothing. "Caruso's bearing them," Jorge said. "I've seen him delete maintenance requests right off the queue." "You sure?" "I watched him do it." "Tommy's report about the hydraulic press?" "Gone." "Rachel's thing about the loading dock lighting?" "Gone." He lowered his voice. "He's gaming the system. Makes his numbers look better, if nothing breaks down on paper." I should have pushed harder then. Should have gone over Caruso's head, called a union rep, something, but I was 28 years old with a mortgage and student loans, and jobs like this didn't grow on trees. So I kept my head down and did my work, and told myself it wasn't my problem. Until the day Caruso pulled Jorge aside. I was at my welding station when I saw them talking near the part storage. Caruso was animated, gesturing toward the overhead crane system. Jorge shook his head. Caruso stepped closer, jabbing his finger into Jorge's chest. My brother's face went red, but he walked away without responding. What was that about? I asked during lunch. Jorge picked at a sandwich. He wants me to bypass the weight sensors on Crane 3. Says they're too sensitive. Keeps shutting down the system. Wants me to wire around them so we can keep running. That's insane. Those sensors are there for a reason. I know. Jorge looked at me with something I didn't recognize and fear, maybe, or something close to it. I told him no. He said I should think about my career here. I put my hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing. But the next morning when we arrived, Jorge's time card had been flagged. Caruso was waiting by the supervisor's desk, that thin smile on his face. Late clock-ins add up, he said. 3 more and you're on probation. Jorge hadn't been late. We'd walked in together. Same as always. That's when I knew we were in trouble. It happened on a Tuesday in March. The morning started normal. Cold air, gray sky. Jorge quiet in the passenger seat. We'd been working double shifts all week. Caruso pushing to finish a hospital contract ahead of schedule. The floor was running ragged. Everyone moving on autopilot and caffeine. I'm documenting everything now. Jorge said as we pulled into the parking lot. Times, dates, every safety issue. I've got photos on my phone. Jorge, I'm serious, Alex. Someone's going to get hurt. Maybe not today, but soon. He looked at me. And when it happens, Caruso's going to need someone to blame. I'm not letting it be us. We clocked in at 6:47 a.m. I remember because I checked my phone, thinking about how many hours until we could go home. 14 minutes later, my brother was dead. The explosion came from the East Bay, where they'd been installing a new pressure vessel. I was 3 stations away, welding a seam on a ductwork assembly. The sound hit first, not loud, but wrong, a metallic shriek followed by a pneumaticus that made everyone freeze. Then the blast. The shock wave knocked me sideways into a tool cart. Alarm started screaming. Emergency lights strobed red across the ceiling. Through the smoke, I could see twisted metal where the pressure vessel housing had been. I ran. Jorge was underneath the collapsed framework, partially buried in debris. His heart had been thrown 15 feet away. There was blood, too much blood, and his eyes were open but not seeing anything. No. I dropped beside him, pressing my hands against the worst of it, but I already knew. Somebody called 911. Rachel Kim was there, then Tommy, then others. Someone pulled me back. Paramedics arrived. 7 minutes that felt like hours. They worked on him for 23 minutes on the floor before loading him onto the gurney. He was pronounced dead at County General at 8:14 a.m. I sat in the emergency room hallway while they called my parents, my hands still sticky with Jorge's blood, staring at the linoleum pattern until the shape stopped making sense. The police came first. Detective Morrison, middle-aged and patient, asking questions I couldn't focus on. When had I last inspected the pressure system? Had my brother mentioned any concerns? Had there been any arguments on the floor? Vincent Caruso, I said, our supervisor. He's been cutting corners, ignoring maintenance reports. Morrison wrote it down, but I saw the look, the gentle skepticism. We'll look into everything, he said. 2 days after the funeral, they came to my house. This time there were 3 of them, Morrison, a woman from OSHA, and someone from the company's legal team. They sat in my living room and laid out documents on my coffee table. The preliminary investigation shows the pressure vessel's emergency release valve had been manually disabled, Morrison said. Bypass the jumper wire. We found your fingerprints on the valve housing. My stomach dropped. I inspect those systems. Of course my prints are there. The bypass was done the night before the incident. According to security logs, you were the last person to access that area. 11:47 p.m. I wasn't even here. I was home. I can prove. Your access badge shows otherwise. The OSHA investigator pushed forward a printout. There was my badge number, my name, timestamp 11:47 p.m., East Bay access point. That's impossible. They didn't argue. They just watched me with those careful, trained faces. The company attorney spoke next. We've also found irregularities in your maintenance logs. Multiple inspections you signed off on appear to have been overstated. Equipment that failed inspection was marked as functional. Caruso altered those logs. He's been doing it for months. Mr. Reyes. Morrison's voice was soft, almost kind. Your brother filed a complaint about you 2 weeks ago. Did you know that? The room tilted. He came to HR, said you'd been pressuring him to skip safety protocols to make your numbers look better. Said he was worried someone would get hurt. No, that's... Jorge would never. But they were already standing, already moving toward the door. The attorney left a card on the table. Don't leave town, Morrison said. We'll be in touch. After they left, I sat in the silence of my house and tried to understand how everything had inverted, how my brother's death had become my fault, how the truth had been twisted into something unrecognizable. My phone buzzed constantly. News vans parked outside. Neighbors I'd known for years suddenly had errands that required them to drive past my house, slow, staring. The local paper ran the headline, "Worker negligent suspected in fatal factory explosion." My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew. I stopped going outside, stopped answering calls. My mother left a voicemail, her voice cracking. Just tell me the truth, Alex. Whatever happened, we need to know. She thought I'd killed him. My own mother. 3 weeks after Jorge died, I finally forced myself to pack up his apartment. The landlord needed it cleared. I moved through his rooms like a ghost, boxing up clothes that still smelled like him, books he'd never finish, the toolbox we bought together when he got hired. In the bottom drawer of his desk, under a stack of old pay stubs, I found his old phone, the the one he'd replaced 6 months ago. Screen cracked, but still charged. I almost threw it in the box with everything else. Almost. The phone sat on my kitchen counter for 2 weeks before I touched it again. I'd moved through those days in a fog, suspended from work, waiting for the district attorney to decide my fate. My lawyer, a public defender named Harris who looked about 12 years old, kept telling me to be patient, that the evidence was circumstantial, that truth would prevail. But truth wasn't prevailing. Truth was drowning under fabricated logs and planted fingerprints, and a dead brother who'd supposedly filed complaints about me that I'd never seen. I'd stopped sleeping, started living on coffee, and whatever I could microwave at 3 a.m. when the walls felt too close. The house was too quiet without Jorge's random texts, without knowing he was somewhere in the world, alive, making his stupid jokes. It was during one of those 3 a.m. sessions, sitting at the table with cold pizza and colder coffee, that I picked up his old phone. The screen was cracked across the corner, spiderwebbing down into the display, but when I pressed the power button, it flickered to life. Battery at 6%. I plugged it in and waited. The lock screen showed a photo of us from last Christmas, both wearing the ugly sweaters Mom had bought. Jorge's face frozen in that moment before everything shattered. I knew his passcode, his birthday backwards. He'd never been creative about security. The phone unlocked. His apps were outdated, frozen in time from 6 months ago. Text messages with people I recognized, some I didn't. Photos of job sites. His car, a girl I vaguely remembered. Normal life, normal chaos. Nothing that explained anything. I was about to plug it into my laptop to pull the photos when I noticed a voice memo app. 43 recordings. Most were probably pocket dials or accidental activations. But something made me tap the icon. The recordings were sorted by date. I scrolled down, past old reminders and grocery lists, until I reached early March. March 15th, 10:47 p.m. Duration, 18 minutes. One day before he died. My hand shook as I pressed play. Static first, then rustling. The sound of phone in a pocket. Footsteps on concrete. Then Jorge's voice quiet. Okay, it's recording. I'm at the facility. Night shift just ended. Going to document what I found. More footsteps. A door opening. The ambient hum of the fabrication floor after hours. East Bay, near the new pressure vessel installation. His breathing was audible, nervous. The emergency release valve. Someone's been tampering with it. There's a bypass wire that wasn't here this morning. My heart hammered against my ribs. I'm taking photos now, Jorge continued. The sound of his camera app clicking. This is insane. This valve is critical. If there's a pressure spike and this thing does a release, the whole system could. Another voice, distant but clear. What are you doing here? Jorge startled. Jesus, Vincent. You scared me. Vincent Caruso. I leaned closer to the phone, every muscle tense. I asked what you're doing. Caruso's voice was harder now, closer. I was checking the installation. Something looked off during my shift, so I came back to... Give me the phone, Jorge. What? Your phone. Give it to me. Now. Vincent, what's going on? Why is there a bypass on the emergency valve? A pause. Long enough that I thought the recording had ended. Then Caruso spoke, and his voice was different, tired, almost sad. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Corporate wants this contract finished early. Every day ahead of schedule is a bonus. Every delay comes out of my bonus, my evaluation, my future. So you're sabotaging safety equipment? I'm optimizing the process. That valve was triggering false alarms, shutting us down 3 times a day. It's oversensitive. The system's perfectly safe without it. Perfectly safe? Jorge's voice rose. Vincent, this is a pressure vessel. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what I'm doing. I'm reporting this. Tomorrow morning, I'm going straight to corporate. The sound of movement, sudden and violent. A grunt, something clattering to the floor. "You're going to keep your mouth shut," Caruso said, his voice low and dangerous. "You think you're the first person to threaten me? You know what happens to people who make waves? They get labeled as troublemakers. They get performance reviews that make them unemployable. They get reassigned to the graveyard shift in the freezer units until they quit. Get off me. Or worse, they get their brothers fired. Alex has a mortgage, doesn't he? Student loans? How's he going to pay those without a job? Because that's what happens if you open your mouth. I'll make sure both of you are blacklisted from every facility in 3 states. Silence. Heavy breathing. Now pick up your phone and go home. Forget what you saw. Come in tomorrow to your job, and everything stays exactly the way it is. Understand? More silence. Then Jorge's voice, barely a whisper. Yeah, I understand. Good. Now get out of here. Footsteps. The sound of Jorge walking away, faster now, almost running. A door slamming. The recording continued. 18 minutes of wind noise and distant traffic as Jorge drove home. Then the sound of his apartment door, keys on a table. His voice one last time, exhausted and scared. I don't know what to do. If I report him, we both lose everything. If I don't, God, if something happens. The recording ended. I sat in my kitchen as the sun rose, playing again, and again, and again. Each time, I heard my brother's fear, his dilemma, the impossible choice Caruso had forced on him. And I heard the truth, the real truth, not the manufactured version the company and the police had built around me. Jorge hadn't filed complaints about me. He'd been trying to protect me. He'd hidden the evidence, kept the recording, probably hoping he'd never need it. Probably hoping Caruso would come to his senses, fix the valve, make everything right. Instead, it had killed him. I looked at the phone in my hands. This cracked, obsolete piece of technology that held my brother's voice, my brother's courage, my brother's final attempt to do the right thing. The battery was at 38%. I connected it to my laptop and began uploading everything. The audio file, the photos from that night, the timestamps, the metadata. My hands were steady now. My mind clear. Vincent Caruso thought he'd erase Jorge's resistance, silence his witness, and frame the perfect scapegoat. He didn't know my brother had been smarter than that, and he was about to find out just how badly he'd underestimated the Reyes brothers. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. The recording played in my head on loop, Jorge's voice mixing with the memory of his blood on my hands, the sound of my mother's broken voicemail. The word killer scraped across my truck. By dawn, I had copies of everything on 3 USB drives, uploaded to 2 separate cloud services, and burned onto a DVD that I mailed to my cousin in Pittsburgh. If something happened to me, if the evidence disappeared, Jorge's voice would still exist somewhere. But having proof wasn't enough. I'd learned that much. The company had already manufactured an entire narrative, complete with doctored logs and false reports. They had resources, lawyers, connections. I had a recording on a dead man's phone. I needed someone who'd actually listen. The first person I thought was Detective Morrison, but he'd already looked at me like a guilty man. Going back to him felt like walking into a trap. The OSHA investigator had been even worse. Taking notes with that bureaucratic efficiency that meant nothing would change. Then I remembered Rachel Kim. Rachel had been on the floor that morning. She'd pulled me away from Jorge's body, held me while I broke down. She'd been at Meridian longer than any of us, 15 years, and she'd butted heads with Caruso more than once. I texted her at 7 a.m., "Need to talk. It's important." She responded 20 minutes later. "Coffee shop on Millbrook. 30 minutes. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in the back corner, looking exhausted. The whole facility had been shut down for investigation. Everyone sent home with pay, rumors spreading like wildfire. "You shouldn't be contacting me," she said as I sat down. "Morrison told us not to talk to you. I know, but I need you to hear something first." I pulled out my earbuds and Jorge's phone. Please. She hesitated, then took the earbuds. I pressed play on the recording. I watched her face as she listened. Confusion first, then shock, then something harder, anger. When it finished, she sat back and stared at me. Jesus Christ, Alex. Caruso killed him. Not me. Jorge was trying to stop him, and Caruso threatened us both. My voice cracked. My brother died trying to protect me, and everyone thinks I'm the one who... I believe you. She said it simply, firmly. I always thought something was off. The timeline didn't make sense. You and Jorge were tight. You wouldn't have... She stopped, shook her head. What do you need? Help. Someone who can make this stick. If I go to Morrison alone, Caruso will find a way to discredit it. The company will claim the recording is fake or edited or taken out of context. Rachel pulled out her phone, scrolled through contacts. My brother-in-law works for the regional news station, investigative journalism. He's good. Won awards, the whole thing. If we give him this, along with our statements about Caruso's pattern of violations, would he actually run it? A company covering up a workplace death? Fabricating evidence to blame a grieving brother? Yeah, he'd run it. She looked at me. But once we do this, there's no going back. The company will come after both of us. Legal threats, reputation attacks, the works. I've already lost everything. I said, my brother, my job, my family won't even talk to me. What else can they take? She nodded slowly. Okay, let me make a call. Rachel's brother-in-law was named Philip Chun, and he met us at his office that afternoon. He was in his 40s, sharp-eyed, dressed like someone who'd been in too many courtrooms. I played in the recording, showed him the photos Jorge had taken, walked him through the timeline, the safety violations, the altered maintenance logs, the manufactured evidence against me. He listened without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. This is good, really good, but I need corroboration, more witnesses, documentation of the pattern of violations you mentioned. I filed dozens of safety reports. I said, they're in the company system. We're in the system. If they're gone now, that's just your word against theirs. He tapped his pen against the desk. But if other workers filed similar reports, if there's a pattern of Caruso deleting complaints, that builds a case. Rachel pulled out her phone. Tommy Huang. He filed that report about the hydraulic press. And there was a thing with the ventilation hoods. Multiple people complained about those. Can you get them to talk on record? She looked uncertain. Maybe. People are scared. They still work there. They've got families, mortgages. I'll talk to them, I said. They knew Jorge. They know I didn't do this. Over the next week, Rachel and I worked quietly, carefully. We met people in parking lots, coffee shops, their homes after dark. Tommy agreed to talk. So did another welder named Brent and a woman from quality control who'd been written up for reporting a faulty gauge. Each conversation was the same. Initial fear, then anger once they heard the recording. They'd all seen Caruso's tactics, felt the pressure to cut corners, watched good people get pushed out for speaking up. Philip Chin recorded their statements, compiled documents, built a timeline. He worked fast, like he knew we were racing against something. The company's going to move to settle this quietly, he said during one late-night session at his office. Once they realize you have this evidence, they'll offer you money to go away, take down the charges, sign an NDA, disappear. I don't want money. I know, but they'll try anyway. And when you refuse, they'll get aggressive. Character assassination, countersuit for defamation, the works. He looked at me seriously. Are you ready for that? I thought about Jorge's last message. Something's not right. I thought about my mother's voice on that voicemail, breaking as she asked for truth. I thought about the word carved into my truck and the empty seat beside me where my brother should have been. I'm ready, I said. The story ran on a Thursday evening. Philip didn't warn me, said it was better if I didn't know exactly when, in case the company tried to get an injunction. I was in my kitchen when my phone started buzzing. Text messages, missed calls, emails flooding in. I turned on the TV, and there it was, Philip's face on the evening news, calm, professional. New evidence has emerged in the Meridian fabrication death investigation that calls into question the official narrative. They played excerpts from Jorge's recording, showed the photos of the bypass valve, interviewed Rachel and Tommy, their faces in shadow, voices disguised, but their words clear and damning. Pattern of safety violations, pressure to meet deadlines regardless of risk. An innocent man wrongly accused. My phone rang. Harris, my public defender, his voice excited. Alex, are you watching this? The prosecutor just called me. They're reviewing the case. This changes everything. Then my mother called. She was crying, not the broken sound from before, but something different. Alex, she said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have. Mom, it's okay. No, it's not. But we're going to fix this. Your father and we're going to help you fight this. Whatever you need. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my kitchen and let myself cry for the first time since Jorge died. Not from grief this time, but from something closer to relief. The truth was out. My brother's voice had been heard. Whatever came next, I wouldn't face it alone. 2 days later, Vincent Caruso was arrested at his home. The news showed him in handcuffs, his face pale and furious, being walked to a police car while reporters shouted questions. The charges included criminally negligent homicide, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. The criminal charges against me were dropped on a cold morning in April, exactly 3 months after Jorge died. Harris called me at 6 a.m. with the news. The district attorney had reviewed the evidence, Jorge's recording, the witness statements, the forensic analysis of the tampered logs, and determined there was no basis for prosecution. In fact, they were preparing additional charges against Caruso for framing me. You're clear, Harris said. Completely clear. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone pressed to my ear, and felt nothing. Not relief, not joy, just emptiness where the fear had been. The company issued a statement that afternoon. Corporate language, carefully worded by lawyers. New evidence has come to light. Deep regret, full internal investigation. Committed to the highest safety standards. They offered me my job back. Full back pay, cleared record, a promotion to safety coordinator if I wanted it, and money, a settlement figure with enough zeros to make me forget the last 3 months. I declined everything except the back pay I was owed. I don't want to work for people who threw me away the moment it was convenient. I told their attorney over phone, I don't want your money. I want you to fix your system so nobody else's brother dies, because a supervisor cares more about bonuses and lives. There was a long pause on the other end. We're implementing comprehensive reforms. Good. Make sure you actually follow through this time. I hung up before he could respond. Caruso's trial took place that summer. I sat in the courtroom every day, in the same seat, watching him try to maintain that calm superiority he'd always worn like armor, but it cracked. Piece by piece, as the prosecution played Jorge's recording, as Rachel and Tommy testified, as the forensic evidence stacked up, the jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. When the verdict was read, Caruso's face went gray. He looked back at me once, and I met his eyes. I didn't feel satisfaction or triumph. Just a quiet confirmation that the truth had weight, that justice, however slow, however imperfect, could still exist. He was sentenced to 8 years. It wouldn't bring Jorge back, but it meant something. I visited Jorge's grave on a Sunday in late September, 6 months after he died. The headstone was simple, the way he would have wanted it, his name, his dates, and the words our mother had chosen. He stood for what was right. I sat on the grass beside him, the way we used to sit on the loading dock during breaks, and I told him everything about the trial, about Caruso's sentence, about the reporters who kept calling for interviews, about the safety reforms Meridian was supposedly implementing. They named it after you, I said, the Jorge Reyes safety protocol. Every shift starts with a mandatory equipment check now. Every worker has an anonymous reporting line. Every supervisor gets reviewed quarterly. I laughed, but it came out wet. You'd probably make fun of the name. Say it sound too official or something. The wind moved through the cemetery trees, carrying the smell of cut grass and distant rain. I pulled Jorge's phone from my pocket, the one I'd kept charged, couldn't bring myself to put away, and set it gently at the base of his headstone. You saved me, I said. Even after you were gone, you were still protecting me, still doing the right thing. That's who you were. I stayed until the sun dropped below the tree line, until the shadows stretched long across the graves, until I could almost convince myself I wasn't alone there. 3 months later, I started teaching. A community college 2 towns over offered safety certification courses for industrial workers, and they needed instructors, people who'd been in the field, who understood the real pressures workers faced, who could teach not just the rules, but why they mattered. I told Jorge's story in every class, not for sympathy or drama, but as a warning, a reminder that every shortcut has a cost, that every bypass safety measure is a life at risk, that standing up for what's right might be hard, but staying silent is harder. My brother died because someone valued efficiency over safety. I'd tell them. He tried to stop it, and they silenced him. Don't let that happen in your workplace. Don't let fear keep you quiet. Because the people you work beside, they're somebody's brother, somebody's daughter, somebody's best friend, and they deserve to go home at the end of their shift. The students would nod, taking notes, and I knew some of them would forget, but others wouldn't. Others would remember Jorge's name, his sacrifice, and maybe, just maybe, they'd speak up when it mattered. On the first anniversary of Jorge's death, I drove to the cemetery with my parents. We stood together at his grave, the 3 of us, and for the first time since everything happened, we felt like a family again. He'd be proud of you, my father said, his hand on my shoulder. What you did, how you fought for him. He'd tell me I'm being dramatic, I said, and my mother laughed through her tears. We left flowers, white roses, Jorge's favorite. And as we walked back to the car, I looked back once at his headstone, at the phone resting there, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not happiness, not closure, but peace. The quiet knowledge that I'd done everything I could, that Jorge's death hadn't been meaningless, that his voice had been heard. Justice doesn't erase grief. It doesn't bring back the people we've lost or undo the pain we've endured, but it proves that truth matters, that standing up matters, that even when the world tries to bury you sometimes, if you fight hard enough, you can dig your way back to the light. And maybe that's enough. If this story moved you, remember, the people working around you are someone's family. Speak up when you see something wrong. Stand up for what's right. Honor the memory of those who couldn't,